Hello. Hello, and welcome to the Success Lab podcast with Tim and Christoph. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Christoph.
For everyone new to this podcast, we make topics like motivation, personal development, health, and life satisfaction more graspable and break down knowledge from different sources and personal experience in a practical way. We want to inspire you guys on this journey so we can strive together for improvement as a community and become the best versions of ourselves. Beautiful, right?
Well said.
Today's topic are, for one side, delayed gratification. We will explain it and maybe do a little bit of philosophy on that. And also we'll have a deep insight into our priorities and analyze two opponents, which seem like opponents, being enjoyment and the strive for your highest self. Hi, Tim. How are you doing?
Hello, Christoph. I'm doing great. I'm very excited for today's episode. And I think, like you said, I think it will be a little bit of philosophing, a little bit of talking, because I don't think it's a very clear-cut topic as like other ones, or at least I think there is a lot of like talking to do here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also think that there are, on one side, out in the internet, many very different versions and many different opinions about those topics. And I also think that we both, especially through our deep and long conversations without the camera, we also love the philosophy about those and the highest priorities in life and what to strive for.
Exactly.
Would you like to maybe give us a brief explanation about the concept of delayed gratification, maybe?
Sure. I think that's very important to start off with the same idea, at least. So delayed gratification is a term used to describe, to put down gratification or the pleasure and joy in the present moment and delay it in terms of you do the work right now and it might not be as pleasurable and as enjoyable as other things could be, in order to then in the later run, in the future, have a greater turnover. So it's kind of like investment. So you could use the analogy of like investing now. We invest time, for example, and effort right now, so we get more out of it later.
Mm-hmm. So if we want to strive for that, then the highest priority is to have the biggest amount of enjoyment.
That's a good question. I mean,
correct?
The question is, what?
Is that correct?
I don't know what's correct. The question is, what is the maxim we strive for in life, right? So if it's in the end to have the highest enjoyment, we kind of you could like calculate the area below the curve and do like stuff. So then we could say if we have more turnover in the future, it would be greater. But I don't think it's that simple to say, right? Like what is the most enjoyment and how do you like really like objectively calculate or like say that? So I think we should still have like a balance between the enjoyment right now and the turnover in the future. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think?
A little bit of a limit in this one. I think if you see an exponential graph, then it would be the best to always put off enjoyment for later, because the compounding effect of your work is getting bigger and bigger and has a little bit of a pause when you enjoy the work that you did before. But I think one limit in this one is, for me personally, that at a certain age that you're maybe not able to enjoy as much. That maybe if you say that the graph is going exponentially like this, of possible enjoyment when you put in the work, and then from the other side cuts the age barrier which says that at a certain age, you're not able to enjoy the amount of enjoyment which you have worked for. And therefore there is a maximum or an ideal way of having the biggest amount of enjoyment, the area under the curve. There's a calculation for that, right?
Yeah, which is you need to use the integrals, and then we're good.
Yeah, the integrals.
I do like that you kind of like jumped on the train here and used like the whole mathematical approach and stuff. So I think that's one way to look at it, like kind of as a mind experiment, and to kind of make it more simple, or make it understandable in terms of like those factors you just described with like, okay, we don't have the same like strength when we're older, for example, like we can't do the same things, so we need to keep those things in account, and that's why like the whole just work for like the future, I personally don't think it works. So even though we just kind of like put this up here as like the great thing, and I do think delayed gratification, so that's important, I do think that's a great thing and great tool, and I also try to use it. But now the question comes, and I think that's what I kind of want to talk to you right now is, or ask you is, what's the right amount? Like you could say, and we should also do a few examples in a little bit, but you could say we do only delayed gratification. That means we don't go to like parties, or don't drink alcohol, and don't do this, and don't play video games, but we like work for our business and study for this, or learn there and read books here. But where is like the border? Like where's the line? How far do we go?
Maybe one question before that, not what is the ideal amount, but what is the currency of enjoyment and gratification? How could we measure that? And that would make it a lot easier. I have one scenario which is kind of extreme. This kind of delayed gratification and instant gratification, right? Which is the opposite. And if you live a life full of instant gratification, so those gratification jumps and maybe dopamine jumps, which are there all the time, constantly. You do play video games or something like this, or drink, or let's say eat chocolate.
Okay,
all the time. So you always have this dopamine kick your whole life.
Yes.
I think you have a really good amount of dopamine or enjoyment in your life. And it would be quite interesting how you would feel at the end of your life. And I'm sorry to jump into it. I think it's kind of wrong to look at your success in life, how much enjoyment you had in life, when you just ask a person at the end of their life. Because we are quite bad in remembering enjoyment. I think I read it in the cool book I got, 80,000 Hours. It's a cool book. I can recommend you guys. We'll put into the description. But it also says that we are really bad in remembering enjoyment and how good it was. Like the trip I made a month ago, I was 1 month in America, and we did so many things, so many beautiful things, spent a lot of money, unfortunately, but also have seen so many cool stuff, met so many cool people. And also my Asia travel was this gratification and this enjoyment, I cannot remember it very well. So that's why most people measure their success when they just ask old people, did you have a good life or a bad life? And then I think they can only remember the last 10-20 years, and not maybe if you have a lot of enjoyment in your childhood. There's also this this thing that you should work hard in your young life, in your younger ages, and therefore have a lot of enjoyment in when you're older. And therefore, when you're older and people ask you more often, did you have a good life or a bad life? Of course, they will say I had a good life, but they forget the bad time and maybe the sacrifices they had to make in their young life. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was a long monologue. What are your thoughts about all those things that came out of my head?
Yeah, I kind of wrote down a few things to keep note of it. So first of all, I just have to kind of disagree with the chocolate thing, or like kind of like put a swing into that, because I'm actually taking neuroscience, a neuroscience class here, just for fun. And if you eat chocolate every day, you will not have the same amount of dopamine hits, right? It will go down and go down and go down. That's the problem, actually. So you can't do that. And that's also what we can keep in mind in the previous, in the upcoming discussions now, because like that's how dopamine and the whole rewarding system works, right? In the end, it's a rewarding system, and in the end, it works like you reward yourself, and then you will get a spike. But next time you reward the same thing, you get the spike when you anticipate the reward. So it's not about the reward itself, it's about the anticipation. Mm-hmm. I will actually play a very short clip to maybe put this in right now, so we can also talk about the neuroscience here a little bit.
What's more beneficial, in fact, can serve as a tremendous amplifier on all endeavors that you engage in, especially hard endeavors, is to A, not start layering in other sources of dopamine in order to get to the starting line, not layering in other sources of dopamine in order to be able to continue, but rather to subjectively start to attach the feeling of friction and effort to an internally generated reward system. And this is not meant to be vague. This is a system that exists in your mind, that exists in the minds of humans for hundreds of thousands of years, by which you're not just pursuing the things that are innately pleasurable, food, sex, warmth. The effort part is the good part. I know it's painful. I know this doesn't feel good, but I'm focused on this. I'm going to start to access the reward. You will find the rewards, meaning the dopamine release, inside of effort if you repeat this over and over again.
A fancy way of saying the way is the goal, right?
Yes, kind of. I do think it is kind of like a similar thing. So this is Dr. Andrew Huberman talking about this. I just described with like you have the anticipation, and you can use this anticipation also like for hard things. So it's not only like when you eat like chocolate is not eating chocolate is not really the hard thing, right? But if you like anticipate the reward while doing workout, because you anticipate how great you will feel afterwards, or what your physique or whatever goals you're setting are gonna be hit, like those goals. This anticipation, you can bound this to the hard thing, and then it will be easier to do the hard things for delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think you have to really reprogram your brain, because all the things that are going on around you tell you otherwise, right? That you strive for this instant gratification, and this is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because as I also thought about the concept, and I didn't think about that it's getting less and less of a dopamine spike. That this is not a long-term strategy. Not even in theory.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I mean, obviously, we're both not neuroscience and neuro
not yet
people, but I think the bottom line here is it's not as simple and not as black and white, and it is something definitely to be looked at, and we can program it, like Huberman just said. We can use it to our advantage to make those difficult things more doable, and I think we have to like work on it. So the whole thing with like motivation, I kind of think there is no motivation in that sense. Motivation is an illusion in my opinion. It's basically willpower that there is. Like willpower is something that is also in some ways like measured, or like you can like see differences in the brain. Talk about willpower, and if you have a lot of willpower, you can overcome this first thing, and like for me, when I overcome this first hurdle, which is kind of like the anticipation of the reward, for example, then you will it will be easier to do the things. So just to put this opinion out here, and how to like maybe go about those hard things.
Do you think those big celebrities and people we follow daily, do you think that in the beginning they didn't use the principle of motivation?
Did it not?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, what's the principle of motivation?
Let's say extrinsic motivation or something like this, or a trigger that comes out so that something is happening in yourself that we say is called motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course a lot of people say, yeah, you don't need motivation. Motivation is not a long-term thing. Motivation doesn't bring you to the goal at all, but maybe it just gives you the first step, but this is not enough. And I think it's easy to say when you succeeded already,
mm-hmm.
and are in your flow and have a routine, but that they all, like a Dr. Huberman, a Stephen Bartlett, a Chris Willings, people like that,
Mm-hmm.
who are quite successful now. I also think that it's quite impossible to get successful and neglecting the whole motivation thing 100%.
I mean,
and that's what they suggest, right? That's a big part. They suggest now you should do it, and you can do it without motivation. Do it without motivation, but they did it themselves.
I do think it's like a definition thing, like what is motivation, what is willpower, and how do you define it? In the end, you could say you need motivation, but it could just be willpower. You need the drive, you need a goal, and you need the drive to go there. But I think what I wanted to say, or what I do also think what they want to say when they say there is no motivation, is that you're not like, when you're like unmotivated, you don't need to seek for like some external things of like motivation, or like think about like how do I get motivated, or like tools how to motivate, but you just have to have willpower and do the things that are necessary to get to your goal. So I do think it's just a little bit of a definition thing here.
Yeah. Quite interesting, really have to say. So that all sounds quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do agree, actually. Maybe we should move on.
No, but I think in a good way. So that I don't know. Of course, we didn't figure it out yet. We're quite young, so you cannot ask us when, or you can ask us in like 60 years how we did in life, and then we can give an opinion about something that we have proven on. But now I think there are a lot of concepts which with which we are playing. For example, also the opponent's high self and enjoyment. Those things. What do you think about that? Those opponents.
What opponents?
The high self, your highest self, striving for your highest self, and enjoying it. Yeah, you can do both. I know.
Now I know what you mean. Okay, you're talking about the kind of like the two polarities of, we are only living in the present moment, enjoy instant gratification, and then we're only working towards future to have the best possible outcome under the curve.
Yes.
Okay. So basically back to the question, like how far, like what's the perfect balance in that way, or can you do both? I just read something, not in this topic, but of like this, it doesn't have to be or, it can always be both. So I do actually, in this sense, like, I think my bottom line would be that we can do both. We don't have to only play for the future or only play for the present moment and enjoy, because it doesn't work. But I think we are kind of, it's a kind of a balance, but it's also like, and that's actually what you told me when we talked about this a few weeks ago, is like, you can totally enjoy the present moment and still do delayed gratification, because not all delayed gratification means that you don't enjoy the present moment. And it's also, I do think in the end, it's a way of how you go about it. It's not about, so delayed gratification is not, it's not how, it's what you do. So it's like the things that bring you closer to the goal. But in the end, we always have the choice ourselves of how we do those things. So we can do all of those things that are delayed gratification, that bring us closer to the goal in the end run and bring us more joy in the future, still enjoy in the present moment, because we do it in the present moment. We do it very mindful and very here and now.
So what is your practical way, or what is your exact train of thought by implementing or by saying striving for your highest self and enjoying the present moment, how you do this at the same time?
Yeah, kind of like I described. So we have our goals, and we have our maxims, and we have our things we want to hit, like our targets, for example. And we go about our lives and think about, okay, what things do I need to do, and what things should I do in order to go there? And then we just plan those things, right? Like that's the basic thing. And then when like things come up that are considered instant gratification, and they don't really bring you closer to the goal, you have to make a choice. So I think that's the moment when you do like that's the moment when you have to choose like the higher path kind of way. Not always, because we're not robots. Like I also have to say that you don't always choose that, but you have to keep in mind, if you want to achieve your goals, you have to choose the higher path kind of, and like do the delayed gratification tasks in that sense. And maybe it's just very important, like for example, if you're like very inner circle partying, maybe you can do that here and there if you really want to do that. But other than that, you should keep doing the other things. But then, and here comes what you kind of like asking, is like, when you do the delayed gratification things, like the hard things that are not as instant gratification, you can still use what we have talked about with Huberman, is you bound the reward to the work, and then you enjoy it in the moment. So you really like go about it, you visualize what will you get out of it, and you really like try to really like make it good. Like you're telling yourself that it's fun, and Huberman actually says it works. So the new circuits are bound to that, and at some point you will have fun, you will be in a moment, you will enjoy doing that, and in the end you will have maybe the same enjoyment in the moment, plus you will get out of the more delayed gratification enjoyment as well.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a lot of enjoyment.
In theory, it does, and I do think it works to a certain degree. Obviously, it's not that easy.
Yeah, and what I find quite interesting, Ali Abdal, a very cool YouTuber, he has this concept, and always post it on his screen, on his computer screen, which just asks the question, how can I make it more fun? So he takes the task and the process and improves it so he gets enjoyment while doing the work. I think this has maybe a very similar outcome, but a very different perspective, because to bound your reward to the work, you get so if we say a very basic thing, you screw a screw on your car. You do something, and Huberman says, while you're doing it, while you're processing something in your brain and putting the trigger in your hand and turning it, you say this is work, and because it's work, it's fun.
Yes.
And Ali Abdal says, I do the work. How can I make it more fun? I play some music with it, so I have some fun. Or, yeah, do it with some friends or something like this. Quite interesting that there are some very different approaches, but I think both effective. What do you think?
Yes, I do think they're both effective. And first I didn't understand, but now, yeah, you're right. They're two different things. And I think they can be both harvested. So I think they are both effective and both useful to do that. In the end, it's the same thing. We want to have we want to have more fun doing what is actually important for our goals. And I think that's the basic thing we want to achieve here.
Yeah.
All right. Now we talked a lot about like how we do that gratification and how we do the hard things. But still, I want to come back to a little bit what you said a while ago about the thing about remembering and how we perceive things that have happened. I think that's a very important thing as well in terms of like look at it. So you said, and there is like evidence to that, you said that you did not remember your trips in, or you didn't remember all of the nice things as well. And I think what I've read is usually the very, very bad spikes, they are remembered more they're remembered more than like the good spikes.
Yeah,
So
I think that's some kind of the lizard brain that we have from ancient history.
Yeah,
we remember that a lot more and better.
So that's one thing, I think. And the other thing I remember from this topic is that the end is always going to be remembered. So that the end of the experience is remembered way more well than everything else.
That's the so-called recency effect at presentations, that the end is way more memorable than the middle part.
Exactly. So that's what I kind of try if I do like trips or like things, to use those two things to have like peaks are going to be remembered, negative peaks more, but still also positive peaks are going to be more remembered. So you want to like maybe go eat one nice time in like your stay in Japan, for example. So I try to have like a very special thing. I don't need to go eat like 5 times super fancy. I think if I just have good food and see the culture and then have one good, really cool experience in that sense, it kind of like triggers the first thing. And then you also want to like keep the ending of the whole thing, kind of like you want to preserve it and make sure it is not bad, because it would be remembered very badly.
So, I mean, I've seen in your Instagram stories that you went to this special Japanese restaurant quite in the end of your journey, right?
Yes.
Because Tim was in Japan the last weekend.
Last week.
Right? So
Extended
really
weekend.
nice. And I followed it on social media. Was that on purpose?
Kind of. So I did kind of think of, I mean, it was not planned like at the end I will do this, but I was like, okay, I haven't done like one great fancy food, and I still want to do it, and I still have like time to make one last thing, and I saved time at the end of the whole stay in Osaka to have time to have one last cool thing. I thought about going somewhere else, but then I didn't have enough time to go somewhere, so I decided I'd just eat very fancy. So I kind of wanted to round it out well with a good meal, and went to a fancy place.
What was it really as expensive as I right now imagine?
Not as expensive, because I'm still looking at it, but it was still more expensive than I would usually like go to, right? Like
it looked really fancy. It looked really cool. I was very jealous that you went to a really cool sushi place in Osaka. Soon, one time.
Yeah. So okay, what do we get out of this? So we remember the things at the end way more. So we want to use that, and we also remember the spikes more. How do we use this?
Using the spikes more. I mean, you can do, I think that adrenaline junkies are a good example for that they want to do more and more exciting stuff because those spikes, yeah, as you said, in time when you do those spikes are getting lower and lower of this dopamine kick. So do you mean this by spikes of events? Because that's the same thing as with the chocolate, right? Which you could eat every day.
But see, the chocolate, what I mean by spikes is like if you look at like a weekend in Japan, the big spikes are the things that are remembered more, like the big pluses and the big minuses, the very bad things and the very good things. So a chocolate in Japan would not be a spike because compared to the other things, it's not memorable. But something special, you have seen a very special temple or something, that would be a spike because you really enjoyed this day and it was just amazing. Or something bad happened and something that kept you making feel bad the whole day would be remembered.
And quite interesting that we have the tendency to make as many spikes as possible because we don't have so much time. We want to see everything. I've went to travel with people who said, I have to see everything, and they have a lot of stress, and they have a lot of spikes. They've seen a lot of spectacular things, but I think which could be strived for, which could be a strategy of limiting the spikes and focusing on them.
Yes.
Meaning that when you go to Japan, that you say, okay, I do 3 great things and I do them good.
Yeah.
So if I go to the fancy restaurant, I go all in. If I look at the temple, I just look at one temple only, and this is going, and I will drive 2 hours for that.
Yeah.
That's all right. I think that could be nice. I don't know why we strive for having more spikes, the better.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
No, I do agree. I think we all tend to do the thing to try to maximize the number of spikes or like the number of things we see. And I do tend to do that as well. But nowadays I try to kind of see like you just said, and I still have a way to go, but I try to see the most important things and focus on like the must do's for myself, right? And then I have like really like doing them, like enjoy doing them. So actually the last day I was there, I was kind of like, I was planning the day on feed, and I was like, okay, what do I want to see? I could see this, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I have like 2 must-sees, like this and this, and everything else is like, for now, it doesn't matter right now. I have it in the backlog, so to say, but for now, I just want to focus on the 2 must-sees, and I want to enjoy them too. And I think that's kind of like what you spoke about, and I think that's what we should try. We should try to really have quality spikes, positive, obviously, if possible, and then also make the end really nice.
Intentional spikes also, right?
Yeah. And we can use this, if we go back to our today's topic of delayed gratification, we can use this also for those tasks, because like if we have those hard tasks, we don't have to like it all the way. But if we like make it so that we like some parts and then the end we get the reward anyway, maybe we can intentionally reward ourselves, even though the big goal, the reward is not here yet, but we can still say, okay, I can do this task and then I reward myself with something short time gratification, so instant gratification. In the end, we will remember, oh, it was still good because we had fun at the thing and then we had a cool thing. So about the remembering factor we talked about, this could be a way how to go about it.
Yeah. So when we go more and more into the accelerating speed in life, in which we have in the 21st century, I would also refer it to the principle of the most important task. So when you have a workflow and you just assign one task to yourself, which has to be done today, then you have this spike, which is more memorable, which you do in a way better quality, where you have the most learning also, and it brings you in the long term way more than having a lot of spikes and doing everything at the same time. Multitasking would be the complete opposite, right, to this principle.
Yeah, I agree. I do think we have to use this to our advantage. And the most important task, like I sometimes call it the daily adventure. I like that a lot. Is a very useful tool actually. Because you have something to look forward to, and something that brings you to the goal. For sure. Like you trust the process, and that's actually this trusting thing. I actually wanted to mention this as well. Is like in order to have this delayed gratification and this, so to say, motivation, which is like kind of illusionary, you have to trust that the thing you're doing will actually have an impact. The thing you're doing has an impact on the goal you want to achieve. And sometimes you just have to trust in like kind of blind trust, because otherwise it doesn't work. And I do think if you don't have this trust, you won't have the motivation to do the delayed gratification task. So I do think we just have to trust the process to a certain degree.
I mean, you said just, I think it's quite hard, right?
Yeah.
That's a big challenge of implementing delayed gratification into your everyday processes. I really have to say that right now, complete honesty, I'm not in a most ideal disciplinic thing. Oh, we didn't mention term discipline, how hard it is, but I really have to say that right now, in the last weeks of now, I have a lot of tendencies to the instant gratification rather than the delayed gratification. So quite interesting, and maybe I can tell you guys in a next time how I cope with that, and maybe some improvements, maybe with the most important task. And also, I really like the quote from Dr. Huberman, to bound the reward to the work. If you have that, I think you're a cool person. Yeah. I think if we want to sum it up a little bit, today's topics, today, I mean, a really short thing. Happy New Year, everybody, right? The new year?
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year.
It's 2024 already. Well, put away those New Year's resolutions. We could have also talked. Let's tackle that also quickly. What is your opinion to New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, well, so I was hoping you asked that. My personal opinion is you don't need a specific date to have new resolutions. I do think it's great to have resolutions, and I do think you have to look at them regularly. And but this could be the 5th of June, right? It could be any day. So, and I don't like people waiting for New Year's, but I do like to make resolutions. And I mean, from all the studies we all know, usually the New Year's resolution don't stick that long. So I do think there's a lot of things to tackle. Maybe we can also, I mean, we did an episode on habits as well. So if you haven't seen that, you can check it out, how to make habits stick and what habits could be good. But it's definitely a tricky thing. And there are books that talk about this, how habits are formed, and it just takes a lot of time. And here again, like the word discipline and also trust, you need to trust the process. You need to be disciplined, because at some point it will kick in. But the bottom line is, I do like the resolutions. I don't think it necessarily needs to be the 31st of December or 1st of January, because everyone is doing it, and it kind of makes it, there's also too much pressure on it. So I don't want like the pressure as well on this date. What do you think?
I think you tackled it perfectly when you said, and for me also the biggest problem is when you wait for this date to come. If you create the New Year's resolutions on the 31st and you implement it on the 1st of January, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you create your resolutions already in September, to say, okay, but next year I will tackle this, and in the months in between you do nothing about it and prepare. That is going to be a big problem. And I think also like new month resolution, new week resolution, new Wednesday resolution. New Wednesday resolution would be fine. All right. So today's Wednesday for us when we recorded this. New Wednesday resolutions. I do some resolutions. I write them down and I implement them right now.
Yeah,
I think that's completely fine. So the waiting part is the most toxic thing about the New Year's resolution. So every time I hear somebody presenting me proudly and asking me about my resolutions, I ask them, what is your resolution for today? What is your goals today? And how they implement it right now.
Yeah. I'm also a little bit skeptical about those things when people tell me, oh, I have new resolutions. I don't want to put it in their face, but usually I think like, oh yeah, good luck. Not in terms of I don't believe in them, but just usually it does. It's so negatively annotated for me in my brain because I have heard so many negative things about like why they don't stick. So but obviously, I mean, the thing is like usually the people that stick to the resolutions anyway, they don't need the New Year's resolution. They do it anyway. They do it another day, or they have their own system already. So that's why like if people tell me they don't do that usually, but now they do it, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be tricky. And I don't want to like be mean or something, but I mean at some point you have to like realize it anyway and see it doesn't maybe it doesn't work as well as they thought, and then they will think about it and learn from their journey as well.
Yes, I also think. And if a date on a calendar is the reason to do something, then this motivation is not going to last very long, right? There has to be some other motivation that brings you to stuff. Right. So delayed gratification, I think you guys have a bit of an insight into this technical term. We also looked at the priorities of your highest self and your enjoyment of the present moment. And for me, a big learning is, of course, that you can do both. And it is not either or. And we have found a little bit of research also from your neurological classes in Korea. And those are also going to be your last days and weeks, I think, in Korea. And you're coming back to Austria. So the podcast format is going to change a little bit. Is that?
Yes, the format will change soon. We still have another episode coming, but sooner or later we will be in person again in our studio. So stay tuned to that, of course. I think it will be a great setup. And yeah, just to wrap the delayed gratification up from my side as well. Interesting topic. I do have to admit it's a little bit trickier to talk about than other topics because it is, like I said at the beginning, it's not as black and white. It's not easy to talk, and we're all struggling. Like I have to say, like it's not easy because our brains, we want the reward. That's the system, the neural circuits of dopamine. We want this dopamine right now, and that's the thing we strive here is to tell you and tell ourselves that we can strive for a better being in order to understand this system and kind of not outplay but play with it and use it to our advantage and bound these rewards to the hard things, because we want to have those goals achieved, but we also want to have fun doing it, obviously. And I think it's possible, like you said, Christoph, and being in the present moment is the perfect key. Like in this podcast episode, we're not going too much in like spirituality, but I do think something that comes up in my mind definitely is the being in the present moment thing. And they don't go against each other. Like you can be in the moment and still do practice delayed gratification. So that's the final thing. I just wanna let it sink here. I like it a lot to talk with you about it, Christoph.
Well, thank you very much to be my sparring opponent. We hope we gave you the one or the other critical perspective and insight about those topics, and maybe it helped you a little bit. If so, please let us know. please, we would love to have some feedback from you guys on Spotify or on our social media channels, which we will link in our description. Our next episode is going live in 2 weeks exact. And we are very looking forward. It makes a lot of fun, and this is going to be the long term. So see you in 2 weeks, right?
Yes. See you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.